Spider-Norman, or dare we say nor spider nor man, was introduced in the 4th issue of the 2019 comic Edge of Spider-Geddon. We must admit that that's a catchy title. Anyway, the comic revolves around the fight between the numerous spider heroes like Spider-Norman and a vampiric family called the Inheritors that feeds on the life force of superheroes. Each one of these spider guys and spider animals and whatnot gave whatever they had to stop the Inheritors, but they were fighting a losing war. This was when Spider-Norman came to the picture. No, we are not saying that Spider-Norman was the beacon of goodness like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man or Captain America, but he was going to be a crucially essential player. But Spider-Norman's story did not end there. This 8-timed amalgamation of Peter Parker and Norman Osborn would go on to participate in a war between numerous spider people and the Inheritors, a vampiric family that fed on spider people. Later, he would go on to exact his revenge on Superior Spider-Man, a version of Spider-Man where Dr. Octopus became Spider-Man. Without any more delay, let's get this wild ride started, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Spider-Norman. Origin explored. The comic actually begins with a letter that Peter wrote to Harry, in which he details what Norman Osborn, Harry's father, is up to. Unfortunately, the letter itself mentions that if Harry finds the letter, it would mean that Peter Parker is dead. According to the letter, Peter and Harry had been working against Norman for some time now. While Peter was trying to sabotage the sciencey stuff, Harry was in charge of the corporate schemes. Norman had been pouring a ton of resources into this super secret project for months now, and although Harry knew about the money and other resources, he did not know the details and particulars of the stuff that was going on in the labs. For the past few weeks, Norman had had everyone in the chemistry department working to refine the web fluid formula, one of Peter's earlier achievements. Norman did not want to just make it stronger, but he wanted the web fluid to have a particular level of plasticity and viscosity. One Dr. On's lab had been running the tests about the possible breakdown of the string theory in relation to alternate realities, etc. Furthermore, Norman had employed almost all his science people into these projects and was flooding them with more money and resources than there is water around Atlantis. Oh wait, that's more of a DC reference. But anyway, Peter in his letter guessed that it had to do something with a time bungee of sorts, something he could use to bungee jump through time and space. So it was quite evident that all of Norman's eggs were in one basket, and if something were to happen to it, Norman could be brought down. Now that Peter was dead, the task fell solely upon Harry. But in order to defeat Spider-Norman, Harry had to get his hands on the Cobalt suit, a version of the Goblin armor that Norman usually wears in comics and movies. Harry broke into Oscorp and took down the men who were bringing him to his father, and Norman was keeping track of things. Harry succeeds in getting the suit and reaches the lab only to discover that Spider-Norman had gotten his hands on a small part of a cosmic cube, which had warped and mutated to serve as a window into alternate realities. But of course, Spider-Norman was there to welcome his son. The father and son got into a fierce battle. Spider-Norman was willing to sacrifice his son just as he did Peter. He believed that with great power came great sacrifice. Harry had been fatally wounded, but he gathered enough strength to destroy the cube. All of Norman's efforts, his money, resources and time had been turned to dust. But something happened. The destruction of the cosmic cube fragment brought the web of life and destiny, a model of the entire multiverse that allows inter-reality travel. But Norman's happiness was soon turned to dust when Spider-Punk, the rock star Spider-Man from Earth 138, arrived and pulled Spider-Norman into the former's universe. What happened after Spider-Punk pulled him into another dimension? Now, this story connects to the 2018 6-issue comic titled Spider-Geddon. So in here, we have Otto Octavius, who is trying hard to be a good guy and a superhero instead of the villain we know him as. He tries to assert himself as a savior of San Francisco and calls himself Savior Octopus, which is enough to show that the dude has a superiority complex and considers himself above others. Nevertheless, he builds a machine that would allow him to transfer his consciousness at will to one of the many clones he has made, which by extension, means that he would become immortal. Other Spider people like Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Punk, Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman and Spider-UK come to warn Superior Octopus that his machine would become the very reason for the return of the Inheritors, and it's not long before that Genix, Werner and Morlun emerge from the machines. The Spider people put up a fight, but Spider-UK and Spider-Man Noir lose their lives. But the combined might of the Spider people was proving to be futile against the vampiric family, more of whose members were emerging from the machines. It was decided that the only way to stop them was activating the self-destruct device of Superior Octopus's lab. Spider-Gwen chooses to stay back to buy everyone else enough time to escape. She had planned to use her Web of Life and Destiny watch at the very last second of the countdown, but it seemed like the Inheritors stole her watch, stealing her ability to travel between universes. But the good thing that came out of her apparent suicide was the fact the Inheritors were trapped in their new bodies at the base. Octavius soon assumes the spider costume and begins calling himself the Superior Spider-Man. I mean, this guy, he seriously needs to chill about leadership. He almost reminds us of Michael Scott from The Office. Nevertheless, he proposes killing the Inheritors and Spider-Punk seconds the idea, and the other Spider people like Peter Porker, Spider-Ham, Miles Morales and Spider-Woman defer and tell Superior Spider-Man that they are not going to commit murder. Well, I'm not taking sides, but if the Inheritors were dead, Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Man UK would not have become Inheritor dinner. So the conflict of opinion divides the group. One was led by Superior Spider-Man and the other by Miles. Although they had the same ends of stopping the Inheritors, they had different means of achieving those ends. But they were outnumbered and overpowered, so both the teams started to recruit other Spider people for their cause. So you see, the stage is being set for Spider-Norman's arrival on the scene. In issue 0 of the comic, Superior Spider-Man recruits Spider-Man from Earth 1048, whom I'll refer to as Spider 1048 in the future. They arrive at the base of Takuya Yamashiro, the Japanese Spider-Man, who has these amazing Jagger-sized robots, etc. They warn him about the Inheritors, while Miles Morales meets Pavitra Prabhakar, the Indian Spider-Man. As more and more Spider people join the fray, we find Superior Spider-Man, Spider-Punk and a few others, with Spider-Norman talking about how to kill, or at least defeat, the Inheritors. We have to realize that although Spider-Norman is a version of the Spider-Man and may serve as somewhat of a hero sometimes, he is essentially a psychopathic man and would do anything he deems fit, no matter the cost that comes with it. While Superior Spider-Man and Miles Morales work hard to defeat the Inheritors, Spider-Norman forms another front along with Spiders-Man, the Spider-Man version who's made out of thousands and thousands of spiders that have a hive mind. Spider-Norman tells Spiders-Man about a secret strategy to contain the Inhibitors. It may involve the death of the Spider people who were present on Earth 616, but he believes that it is a small price to pay for the greater good. Meanwhile, Solus, the most powerful of the Inheritors, also comes back to life, thanks to a little mistake of Spider-Woman. Miles Morales reveals that it was in his world that the first war between Spider people and Inheritors was fought, in which Solus killed the Enigma force-powered Spider-Man, but the Inheritors were ultimately defeated. Interestingly, Superior Spider-Man and Spider-Norman visit the latter's home world to find out anything they could about the mysterious and sentient Enigma force. But as I mentioned, Spider-Norman had other things on mind about the whole situation, so he took Spiders-Man to Loom World, or Earth 001, the base of operations of the Inheritors. Furthermore, Norman had seen the place in his vision. Here they find Karn, an ex-inheritor who switched sides to go over to the side of the good guys and became the Master Weaver. But Karn had been killed by one of his family members and the Web of Life and Destiny was unguarded. Unfortunately enough, Norman allows the spiders of Spiders-Man to devour the corpse of Karn. Meanwhile, Norman steals the Web of Life and Destiny to restrict each and every interdimensional travel. The other Spider people soon feel the effect as their interdimensional travel watches stopped working. After Spiders-Man used the web to send his spiders to different universes, Spider-Norman destroyed the Web of Life and Destiny. We don't see any of Norman after this, but at the end, when we see him holding a DNA container. What came after the Spider-Geddon event for Spider-Norman? After the events of the previous series, Spider-Norman appeared in the 9th issue of Superior Spider-Man. So this guy has assumed the identity of Elliot Tolliver, a professor and scientist, but his day job also included doing the heroic things like saving the people of San Francisco from the alien threat of Terrax, the demonic evil of Master Pandemonium, and most recently the invading armies of Frost Giants. It turns out that Otto had transferred his consciousness into a new body, and that's how he was looking so fit and not like the rather obese middle-aged man he usually resembles. However, Otto Octavius was not really used to this new life. I mean, he had been a supervillain for most of his life, and this recent change of conscience was putting its weight on him. First, he was the most narcissistic man in all of San Francisco and believed that everything he did had to be perfect, flawless. So when it came to defending people, he was aggrieved that people were losing their lives, and that too on his watch. Yes, he was able to save the lives of millions, but he was also letting a few others die, simply because everyone cannot be saved. It was a fact, but he was having a hard time accepting it. In fact, Peter Parker came to visit him at the behest of Anna Maria Marconi, Otto's love interest, but that turned out to be futile. After this, Otto broke down before Anna Maria and unburdened his weight of responsibilities that came with his powers. The two of them rekindled their dying relationship and shared a kiss. But the entire sequence of events was being witnessed by Spider-Man and the star of today's show, Spider-Norman, who thought that if Otto could care for someone, he was vulnerable, and Norman was up to something huge. In the next issue, Norman reveals Otto's real identity to the world. The news that this new San Francisco Spider-Man was, in fact, Otto Octavius, the cop killer, spread faster than wildfire. Otto wasn't sure how to deal with the situation, but he found help from his colleague, Modell, and Miss Marconi. But of course, Norman couldn't just sit and watch from a distance. After all, he needed his revenge. He felt insulted when Superior Spider-Man took charge of leading the team of Spider People during the Spider-Geddon event, and that's why he left the party to go to Loom World. But now every one of his opponents was dead, and he had come to exact his unreasonable vengeance on Superior Spider-Man. Using deception and cunning, Spider-Norman destroyed the facility where Otto and his friends were inside. Superior Spider-Man was grievously injured, but how could that satisfy Norman Osborn? He wanted more. In his own words, "I am going to murder everyone you care about, even a little bit, and tear down everything you have built in all your incarnations." When Otto asks why he is going to such extreme lengths, this is what Norman has to say. "The most important reason of all, Otto, you insulted me." So this guy did take it a bit too personally. I guess that's what happens when the greatest narcissist insults Marvel's most notorious psychopath. By the 11th issue, Norman Osborn, aka Spider-Man, was doing what he does best: creating havoc, destroying people's lives, and corrupting good people. He began by hurting those who helped Superior Spider-Man with anything. Next, he went straight up to a little kid named James, whose parents had passed away in the 4th issue. Superior Spider-Man had grown fond of this little lad, and James reciprocated the feeling. In fact, Otto was helping James to get adopted by his aunt and uncle. But Osborn knew this secret, and the little kid served as the perfect weakness. As Norman was pursuing James, Superior Spider-Man showed up and engaged with Spider-Norman. Superior Spider-Man hadn't yet recovered from his injuries from the previous issue, but we knew that he had to save the kid. There was simply no other choice. However, Osborn managed to get his hands on the child and threatened to kill him. But Otto made an offer Osborn couldn't refuse. He offered to do anything for Osborn if the child was left unharmed. Osborn jumped at the opportunity to turn San Francisco's White Knight into a murderous criminal. Osborn's condition was simple. Otto was supposed to kill 3 innocents who had everything to live for, and the deed had to be done in broad daylight, in full public view. Osborn gave Otto a couple of hours to get the task done, or James's little neck would be swiftly snapped. As would have been expected, Otto gave in and accepted the offer. Somehow, this reminds me of Joker from Nolan's Dark Knight. I mean, he took Gotham's White Knight, Harvey Dent, and had turned him into a killer, a murderous supervillain. Anyway, what Otto does next was nobody's guess. He made a deal with the devil, quite literally. Otto summoned Mephisto and asked him to hand over Doc Ock's previous persona. Yes, the same villain who haunted Spidey for years. Otto knew that even if he killed the 3 innocents that Osborn had asked him to, James would still be dead. So he had to do something about it. But he couldn't do it as Spider-Man. Although Otto wanted to change for a day, temporarily, Mephisto insisted that it should be something more permanent. And there you have it. Superior Spider-Man was reborn as Doc Ock, in his old body and everything. Which brings us to the climax of this story. Otto returns to Norman with the first victim to Osborn. Well, of course, it's the trick that Dr. Octopus is playing. The victim was Dr. Octopus, while the man bringing him was a clone that he was controlling. Osborn and the reborn villain engaged in a fight. It initially seemed that Spider-Norman would easily take Dr. Octopus down, but the latter had brought all of his harnesses and hundreds of arms, while Osborn had just 6. Within no time, Otto was breaking down Norman's bones with surgical precision, just enough to leave him with a flailing body, but alive. The prognosis was that they would never be right again. After this, he extracted the fragment of the web of life and destiny from Norman and sent him to his own world, where people were waiting to hurt Norman. But Otto knew that Norman Osborn was not to be taken lightly, and if by chance Norman ever chose to return, Otto promised that he would be waiting for him, and that the next time he would not waste so much effort on disposing of the trash that Osborn was. A chance at redemption for Spider-Norman. In the end of the Spider-Verse Part 4, The Unraveling, an intense series of events unfolded on Earth 44145. This universe had Madame Web, who had the ability to observe and manipulate the Great Web, a vast interconnected network of alternate realities. Madame Web finds herself witnessing a dire situation as Shatra's forces, led by the Spider Bio-Droid and Spider-Rex, relentlessly hunt down various Spider people across the Great Web. The Spider Bio-Droid and Spider-Rex, under the influence of external forces, target Spider-Norman. Sensing the impending danger and realizing the time is running out, Spider-Man, who possessed the fragments of the Great Web, handed the canister containing these fragments to Norman, hoping to buy him a few crucial seconds. In a race against time, Norman takes refuge in his laboratory and employs a teleport device to transport the canister to a safe location. Simultaneously, he triggers a self-destruct mechanism in his lab, aiming to eliminate his enemies, thwart Shastra's plans to acquire the knowledge within the canister, and achieve a personal victory in his final moments. What makes Spider-Norman so deadly? Spider-Norman's powers are very well an amalgamation of Peter Parker and Norman Osborn's powers. He possesses a comprehensive set of powers and abilities derived from both individuals. This unique character demonstrates a remarkable set of skills and attributes that enable him to navigate the challenges he faces. One of Spider-Norman's notable abilities is his spider sense, a precognitive danger sense deeply interconnected with the web of life and destiny. This heightened sensory perception manifests as a tingling sensation in the back of his skull, alerting him to potential or immediate threats. This extraordinary sense provides Spider-Norman with remarkable reflexes, allowing him to evade injuries with great efficiency. It grants him a brief warning, often mere hundredths of a second, which affords him the opportunity to avoid harm, be it from falling objects, projectiles, or physical strikes. The directionality of the spider sense assists Spider-Norman in identifying concealed enemies or hidden weapons. However, the sense may react intensely to sudden and severe perils. It can even function when Spider-Norman is asleep or temporarily incapacitated. While it can be consciously ignored or weakened by distractions and fatigue, Spider-Norman's fighting style effectively incorporates the advantages provided by this heightened sensory ability. Moreover, this amalgamation of Peter and Osborn's powers grants Spider-Norman impressive superhuman strength, enabling him to effortlessly overpower ordinary humans, lift heavy objects with ease, break through materials like wood or metal, and punch through glass without sustaining injury. In conjunction with his strength, Spider-Norman exhibits remarkable speed and stamina, allowing him to operate at superhuman levels for extended periods without experiencing fatigue. His bodily tissues have been fortified by a formula, rendering him significantly more durable and resistant to injury compared to regular humans. While susceptible to weapons such as knives or conventional bullets, he can withstand substantial impact forces and blunt trauma that would prove fatal to an average individual. In instances of injury, Spider-Norman's accelerated metabolism facilitates a regenerative healing factor, facilitating faster and more extensive tissue repair. While not on par with individuals like Wolverine, Spider-Norman can recover from injuries that would be lethal to ordinary humans. Marvelous verdict. Spider-Norman is one of the more unique versions of Spider-Man, something that truly intrigues us on a personal level. This guy was Spider-Man, but with a psychopathic twist, and that too of Norman Osborn. You see, we may have Gwen, Uncle Ben, a pig and a T-Rex as Spider-themed heroes or villains, but turning Norman Osborn into a Spider-themed being is something like the Batman who laughs. You know, the best of the good guy and the worst of the bad guy. You may think that the positive and the negative would cancel each other out, but on the contrary, such an amalgamation almost always turns sour and lethal. While we enjoyed reading the comics and bringing you this video, we would sincerely like to know your personal views on the subject. Did you like the character of Spider-Norman? Do you like how he operates and functions? And most importantly, do you like the fact that he was redeemed in the end? Was that even necessary? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.